Welcome to another episode of the Revenue Lab. I'm here with Mark Holenstein. Hey, Mark.
Hey, Yanis, hi.
Hi, it's fantastic to have you. You have a wealth of experience. Actually, you've been acquired by SAP twice for over $1 billion. Tell us a bit more about your background.
Yeah, very happy to do that. Actually, my first job was at Philip Morris after university, and I was a big heavy user of the SAP product, and we had a big SAP team there. So I was quite a fan of SAP. So being acquired by them 20 years later was quite amazing for me. So I was super happy, and I felt like this is the best you can get to have a company that this awesome company SAP wants to acquire. So that was really great experience for me, as I always liked this company and admired the company. And I must say they also did an amazing job integrating Hybris, especially. So that was a very positive experience for all of us. So I think we never regretted that we had actually done this. But in the end, the focus was never selling the company to neither Signavio nor Hybris. The plan wasn't to sell it to SAP. I think we always just had the plan to build a cool company that people love to work with and to work at, and then take it from where we are. Yeah. So I think the plan was never to sell. The plan was always to build something that can last forever. And then actually you realize that somebody's showing up and giving you a lot of money, and then it's not always your own decision. There's also other people that own the company and they have ideas as well. So I think at some point it's a bit of an open field what's happening to your company. But you always wanted to build a great company that has built value for customers and employees.
Yeah, I love this very much. As a repeat founder, I think it's the dream of most founders to build an everlasting company. Extremely hard to achieve, as we all know. So you already mentioned a few companies. So maybe for the listeners, what were some of your different journeys? What were the companies you joined? Yeah.
Yeah, I have a bit of I never did career planning, to be quite honest. I shouldn't maybe say that, but after university, I worked at Philip Morris in the finance team. So I was a marketing controller back then. Then had the opportunity to lead a business unit of a Swiss manufacturing company. And there actually I came into customer at Philip Morris. I always felt like, Jesus Christ, we make so much money here, but nobody speaks about customers. Those seems to be anonymous people buying our stuff. Then I moved into the Swiss manufacturing companies. We only had 10 customers, so I started to really realize what it means to have like a heavy engagement with a very small group of customers, and I really enjoyed it. So I really enjoyed this customer interaction, this focus on their needs, and really be there for them always. And at this company, we built the first website in the year 2000. We decided to build a website, which
It was very revolutionary back then, right?
That was super revolutionary back then. I remember actually there was like a small agency. I think it was in Wiesbaden in Germany that had like a cool video with a baby on their website. So I felt this is the agency that is building our website. It didn't really end well, but it really inspired me to go work in the internet economy. So I decided with a friend to build our own startup. So we built an e-commerce startup, and it was actually a first SaaS offering. So it was like a B2B2C business concept, and it was totally cloud-based SaaS already back then. It wasn't like a smashing success, so we sold it after 4 years to the biggest Swiss retailer, and the website was up for 20 years. I think now they took it down. So, but that's how I got into internet. And then I moved on to a startup that used the Hybris software. So I was the CEO of a company that used the Hybris software, and the software did not really work. So the startup did not work. But that's how I got in touch with the founders of Hybris. because I basically met them, said, "Hey, your stuff doesn't work." Um, and we got along well despite having those conflicts. And so they asked me if I want to build the Swiss business for them, as they were just starting to expand internationally. And so yeah, I like them, and I like the e-commerce a lot, obviously. So that's how I got into the e-commerce business. And so I built Switzerland, then Germany, then EMEA for Hybris. So yeah, that's how I got into sales management and maybe a bigger go-to-market role.
Yeah,
Why the
and you stayed
Hybris?
with them for over 10 years, and then you got acquired, right? And had
Yes,
another 3 years run as the CRO of the SAP customer experience business unit. Or?
yeah, 4 years actually. So yeah, those 10 years passed like I never realized that I worked 10 years for Hybris. It was so much fun. Um, and the company was scaling so much, and everybody loved us so much. So it was an amazing time actually back then. And so it didn't feel like 10 years. And then the 4 years SAP was great as well. I mean, you can learn so much at a large company. You also learn about politics that should not exist in the scale ups, but they exist obviously in the large companies. But that's, I think, a part of the business when you grow. It's just getting more political. Um, but I learned a lot about how to run a big business at SAP. Um, at some
Yeah,
point, I felt like again a bit with I'm just not the corporate guy. Um, so I wanted to do something more down to earth again. That's why I left for Signavio, and then yeah, 4 years later, 5 years later, I ended up at SAP again. So, but again, they really did everything well, and it fits perfect into their offering. Um, and it's one of the core components now for the RISE program at SAP, and it's hugely successful again. So I think
yeah,
it's always great to see when you sell your company and then the SAP does something amazing about it and really boosts that to levels that you probably could not do yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's acquisitions done right. There are many examples of the opposite, I would say. But yeah, I mean, obviously, absolutely amazing track record. And yeah, I'm curious, like, I think something we talked about, before recording this is like, that every company goes through these different stages, right? Like, and so how would you describe the different phases between like, 0 to 100 million? Because you've been there and seen various different of those phases. Yeah, super curious what your view on that is.
Yeah, I feel there's also an interesting concept called the Valley of Death, and I think there's some studies in the internet on that as well. No, so it's there's like 28 million SaaS companies out there, roughly, and from those 28 millions, roughly 4% make it above 1 million ARR. So most of the companies actually never make it beyond this 1 million. Having founded my own company, I know how difficult it is actually to just get like 100 and 200K of revenue generated. So you need to really work hard, and you need to be very persistent on how you do it. And it takes much longer than you think, no? So this 1 million, I feel, is one of the key thresholds that maybe confirm, do you have something viable that more than just a few people want to buy?
Mhm.
Something you found something that people are willing to give you money for. And so I feel this 1 million is the hardest to crack. And I guess it's only founder led. So I think the founders need to be really capable of selling their solution to the first customers and then deliver it. So I think the most of the companies I started to work with at a bit of a later stage, they always had a very, very tech-minded philosophy. I think it's just founder-led. Most of the founders are more tech-minded people, as you need to build a product, obviously, to sell it.
Yeah.
Then I feel like it's a lot of people then don't make it to 10 million. I think from the 4%, it's then only 0.4% that make it to 10 million. So a lot of people then don't survive this 10 million. And I think the 10 million is more do I find maybe customers in other markets than my home market? So can I maybe open up a business in the US, or can I open up a business in the UK or in France or in Germany, wherever you are? So have success like in another market than your initial market. I think that's one of the things that takes you to 10 million. And then I think the next thing is and it's quite amazing. It's just always very difficult. I think there's not one is more difficult than the others. I think it's just always very difficult. 0.06% make it to 50 million.
Yeah.
So it's and I think the 50 million is something that is again a magic number, because you need to have success, and I think they need to be recognized as a global solution somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to show up on those analyst reports, and you don't show up there if you just do business in one or two markets. I think you need to be a bit more spread out, and I think that's a difficulty that a lot of companies have, opening up new markets. This takes a lot of time, a lot of resources, a lot of investment. A lot of founders moved to the US, for example, for many years and just lived there to build the US business. So I think this 10 to 50 is more about internationalization of your business, finding new markets. And then we're at Akeneo right in that phase. No, so we are beyond the 50 million, and now we're moving towards the 100 million. And I think there you need to start adding more products, or at least you need to have a vision that once you hit 100 million, I think you need to have new markets, new products. And this is always very difficult. It's quite interesting in manufacturing when you launch new products into new markets. It's actually as difficult as in SaaS industry launching new products into new markets. It's always difficult. It's the most difficult thing, actually, launch a new product in a new market. This is super difficult. So I think from 10 to 50, you maybe have the products, so you just go international. I think as of 50, you need to start think about, okay, how can I extend my offering and make it a bit bigger? And then I don't know how many make it to 100 million, but there's a reason why unicorns are called unicorns. I haven't seen many in my life. So it's, I think, even harder to hit the 100 million and then actually hit the 100 million with not a declining growth. Obviously, that's you need to have like a vision. How can I get to 1 billion, basically, in revenue? And that just becomes at some point really hard to imagine when you hit 100 million. And I think it's one of the reasons maybe companies start to think about, do I sell the company to an SAP, Salesforce, an Adobe, or whoever can buy this? Because you cannot imagine, it's so hard to get to 100 million. How the heck am I going to scale this to 1 billion? And that's how I saw at SAP. At SAP in CX, I think when I left, it was a 1 billion business. Back then we had still on-premise and SaaS, so it was like a combined billion. To be very transparent, but we had like 10,000 key accounters at SAP. We had like 600 go-to-market people in my team. So this is just a dramatically big engine that is needed to get to 1 billion. So I feel like it's very hard for a company to go there. Celonis, for example, a cool German company, I think they cracked it. Yeah, they really made it they got to 100 million, and now they're on the path to 1 billion. But there's very few companies that stay independent going to 1 billion, I feel.
Yeah. It's extremely hard. And I don't know if any one of your listeners listen to Mark Robert's Science of Scaling podcast. It's a fantastic podcast. And I think the intro is like going from, 1 to 100 million is, very few companies actually make it. And I think the conclusion is like that we suck at go-to-market. And because you could argue, right, like you have to get to product market fit first, and then to message market fit, go-to-market fit, right? And then, obviously building go-to-market organizations is extremely complicated and difficult. to do in a productive manner, right? I think, and I really love what you said about the unicorns, because I think there was a lot of discussion about unicorns in the last couple of years. It's when you hit 100 million in revenue, not when your valuation is 100 million, right? That when your valuation is a billion, that doesn't make you a unicorn. It's really like get to that 100 million in real recurring revenue, right? That with the public multiples, whether they are 7, 8, or 12x, depending on your criteria, you're close to that, right? So what I would love to do from here is, given that you have actually lived through these phases now multiple times, like, when did you typically enter the companies? What kind of responsibilities did you have? And then, let's dive through, these different phases, and, what you think, really, like, were some of the core challenges and lessons learned. So yeah, maybe let's start with the first question, like, kind of when did you typically join the companies? What's your sweet spot of, phase of growth?
For me, at some point, I concluded this one first million is very hard. So I did it, and I concluded I don't want to do this again. So I feel entering for 10 million is for me personally always interesting. So Signavio was 8 million. I think when I joined, it was at 80 million when it was acquired by SAP. Hybris was at 5 million something. It went up to 150, I think, when it was acquired by SAP. So I always felt like this close to 10 million is a good range. Selfishly, maybe because it's a test, for yourself. So a company that has a path to 10 million, I think they have a solid product. They must have happy customers. That's one thing a lot of people neglect sometimes. It's if you don't have happy customers and your churn rate is above 10%, all the growth is eaten up by your churn. So I think when you manage to get to 10 million, you also manage to retain your existing customers. You manage to maybe expand them, and this is something I think you need to be able to prove that you have a product that people want to keep, that they want to buy more, and I think it has also had success in another market than your home market, which it's, I think, really difficult for most of the companies to move out of your core market. All the companies I worked with, this was like the main struggle is I founded this company in Germany, I founded it in France. How the heck do I convince a German to buy software from a French? Or how do I convince a Brit to buy software from a German? Or what most difficult is how do I convince an American to buy from an European, as they feel like only the US software is proper software. So I think at 10 million, you sort of have made also a successful entry, at least into one other market. And so then I think the game is much more, how do I scale that now into more than just one market? And how do I impose myself in those core SaaS markets that are out there? And I think that's the difficulty. Yeah, I think that's the difficulty in scaling from 10 to 100. I think that's really the difficulty. Most of the companies have a sweet spot. Most companies I worked for were all starting more in the mid-market.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's always, and also was interesting to see how do I change my whole go-to-market setup, moving from smaller mid-market customers into enterprise customers. That's a very different game that you play. And I think a lot of companies fail to do so. Some companies are very successful.
How do you do it successfully? I mean, yeah. Like, how do you add that, let's say, even different go-to-market motion if you already have a mid-market business? I mean, is it a complete new team? Is it a complete new way of doing things? Yeah.
I think it's, well, the way we did it in the past and the way we do it now at Akeneo is, you hire some of those enterprise pre-sales and sales, as they know the game. It's a very different game selling to large customers than to mid-market customers. It's highly political. It's highly complex. You have like approvals, 50 approvals. It takes a long time till you get the deal. So in the end, I think it's a very different ball game than selling to smaller customers. And then sometimes the deal sizes are not even that much bigger. So it's a heavy investment. And in those times now where we are with the big focus on efficiency, you need to be very cautious about it. I think it's so yeah, you need to bring in some enterprise talent. Most of the time, the existing people that were growing in the mid market, they lack this capability of selling into larger account. But it also means like your support levels are very different in the enterprise game.
Yeah.
Partner network is very different in the enterprise game. Functionality sometimes very different in the enterprise game. So I think if you move to enterprise, it means a lot of things that you need to change. You need to change the product. You need to change the SLAs. You need to change the pre-sales, sales, marketing. So it's a lot of, I think it's a lot of things, and it takes time, and it's quite expensive to do it. So we try to have a balanced setup, so we don't want to lose our mid-market setting, and just slowly build the enterprise engine on top of it. At Hybris, I don't know, sort of were pulled into that. We planned it, we're just pulled in because there was so much demand from large customers who wanted and had to do something. So we didn't even have a chance. And
Which is, I think, exactly what you want, right? Like there's, I think, a difference between, okay, you sit in the boardroom, you say, we have to increase our ACVs and now let's do enterprise, right? And then I think often what gets forgotten is what you just mentioned, that like this is probably a multi-year investment that can make or break the company. And then the question is also, right, like, does the product have strong product market fit in the enterprise segment? And so if you're pulled into it, right, then you already know that. So the risk is a lot lower. So if you, I mean, was it at Signavio the same, that where you pulled into it? Was it like a rational decision? And if so, you know, like how long did it take to develop that motion, right? Like to get to scale, let's say, you know, the enterprise segment getting to 10 million, right? Which is, I mean, pretty much from 0 to 10 million because you lay it on top of the mid-market motion. Like, you know.
I think the main pull at Hybris, we saw really this pull, but this was just, I think we had the right product for the right moment, and everybody just was desperate to move into e-commerce. I think it was an exceptional moment. At Signavio, we had this process mining technology, which was just groundbreaking as well. So that was something that was just totally disruptive. And this was very appealing to large clients. So when we launched process mining, I think it came with the need of finding larger clients, because a small client is not that focused on, I feel like, just 500 employees. You maybe don't need to document the way you work too much. You still see each other. So Signavio, it was mainly the process mining thing that pushed us into the enterprise base, but it was also like a more slower build than at Hybris. And Akeneo is probably similar to Signavio. It's we see interest from those larger clients, but we still a lot of good demand from the mid market. And we're working our way up, and we also need to add certain functionalities. That was the same thing at Signavio as well. We had like all those large banks, and they all of a sudden said, yeah, but we have like 80,000 employees that want to access your process portal. And then Willie, the CTO, said, I don't know. I never thought about 80,000 users.
Please don't close it today. Just give us some time.
Yeah, no, it's, but I think in all the companies, I think it's always this balance, no? You need to find this balance between I think after 10 million, nothing is perfect yet. No, so and I think that's my learning actually. Till today, I go sometimes, oh my God, why have we so many issues all the time? Can I just sit back and relax a bit and see how it works? And unfortunately, I think what you do is if you scale a company dramatically fast, it's never easy. And there's an amazing quote actually from Mario Andretti I love so much. He said, if everything feels like under control, you're just not going fast enough. And, I love this quote because it. So I think in what we do, you never feel like everything is under control. So there's always things that are not under control because you go very fast. And I think you always need to acknowledge that. So product is never perfect. So you need to go and add the product. Go to market is never perfect. You constantly need to change things on the go to market side. And sometimes you also need to decide, hey, this was a total fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's stop it.
Yeah. When you know that, when you know when to stop.
There's a simple rule, I think, from Einstein. If you tried it 3 times and it didn't work, so it will not work for sure. So I like this quote because I think I think if you keep trying for too many times and it's not working, you probably better give up on it.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like I think you mentioned this earlier, like basically from 10 to 100 million, you have to, or 10 to 50, maybe let's say in the first step, like you have to enter new markets. I think there's like an interesting way of looking at this. You can look at kind of the markets by geo, the go-to-market motion, right? So whether you're mid-market or enterprise, and this is actually also entering a new market. And then there's basically new products, right? So if you think back, in your experience, I mean, what would you say would be the first step when you're from 10 to 50, right? Like what you recommend to expand? And I think it's different for every company, right? But what has worked for you? Is it rather the geo expansion, or is it the, let's say, segment expansion from mid-market to enterprise? Or is it adding a new product already at that stage, which I think probably not, but yeah.
I think the easiest way to grow your business is increase price. Maybe you shouldn't say that here in this podcast, but I think it's quite interesting that that's obviously also the most dangerous thing. But back in the Hybris days, I think we doubled and doubled and doubled and doubled and doubled and doubled again. And somehow it never affected our demand. Probably our price point was by far too low when we entered actually the game. But it was insane how many times we doubled the price and we thought like this is it, but then never was it. So I think if you can increase your pricing, just maybe also look into what is the value I create. I think that's super important when you play the price game. Obviously, you also need to have the value stories for the customers that this is not a lot what they basically give you compared to the value they find. And so I think as long as you have a good value story and you can prove it, that's, I think, one thing of the most important things. You need to hold your promises. Also, I think in all the companies I work, we're always a bit on the edge with promising things. And I think but it only worked because we kept those promises and delivered on them. So being actually ambitious and being pushy, but then always make sure you deliver the value to the customer, I think it's very important. If you just up price and then customers don't find the value, then your retention rate is not very good. And so it's backfiring on you. But I think finding a good price point is always important. And I feel like most of the companies set the price point too low, especially when you come from mid-market. You're always a bit cautious to increase price, and at some point, I think you also got to watch it. It's maybe the max. So it's something always we did. So we always worked a lot on just what is the best pricing at the value we can provide. Internationalization was always what we did. So open up new markets, and then impose yourself in those markets. That was always the thing we did. At Signavio, when I came, we opened the UK. We didn't have any business there. We opened the Nordics. We opened Australia. So we just entered new markets. Same at Akeneo. We opened new markets, but we focus on a few markets. Hybris the same.
Yeah.
Turkey, we went to France, we went to Japan. So yeah, opening new markets, I think, is one of the key dimensions to expand. It's also very expensive, and I think today that has a bit changed. Now today, this efficiency factor is just much more important than it was like 4 years ago. 4 years ago, you could work efficiently. I think today you need to. I think you need to weigh your bets a bit. Yeah, can I afford going into a new market? As it will cost me 2-3 million before I see a return. So I can afford that, and my efficiency is not declining. So as I think today, those bets are much more difficult, and and you need to weigh them much more than maybe 4 years ago. But moving into new geos, I think is a good way to scale. And moving into new segments, I think is also a good way to scale. But that's a bit less predictable, no? I think if you find a good spot, a good industry for you. For example, Akeneo is great in was like we are the one and only solution for the luxury fashion industry, for example. So if you have such a strong industry, you can go find customers just based on the references we have in one market in the other one. So I think you have a good talk track with the customers. Now moving into enterprise, your talk track, you don't have those references that you could refer to. Also, I think it's a bigger risk moving into a new segment, sometimes even more risky than moving into a new market, because you lack the credibility in this specific space, and it might come with a lot of investments, not just having salespeople do it, but then the whole support and everything. So I think geo expansion is always a good one. It takes always much longer than you think to go into a new market, and quite often it's not successful right away. So you got to find. By the way, you got to it depends so much on the people that you find.
Yeah, always. I mean, I think that is what makes the whole game even harder, right? Like if you could just say, okay, now we expand into the US and everything is working greatly, but then you do your first hires as maybe European founder or go-to-market lead, and you realize you have no clue what good looks like and how to successfully do it. I mean, I lived through that with Fiverr myself back in the days, and when I left, most of our business was actually in the US. So, that one is close to my heart, I'd say. Would you say that like you should? I mean, I think in these times, right, like all these investment decisions can yield success, but they can also fail, right? And I guess with the move to, like really being a lot more efficient, that's, like that is way more important these days. I assume back in the days with Hybris, right? Like you mentioned that you had strong pull from the enterprise market. So you already almost like proved the model before you invested in it. Like what are early signals people can look at to make these decisions and reduce risk?
I think the pull is the pull is really I think it's a good sign. I think it's a good sign. No, so you need to find somebody buy your product in the end. No, so and you need to find the first enterprise customer to give you your trust. And I think it's either you go try sell to them, and if you do it well, maybe convince somebody to do it. So that just takes longer, or you just have the product fit already, and people look at you and they just buy you. What I found amazing actually is, for example, at Signavio, we were super successful with trials. That I found that amazing. we had large companies sign up for trials, and then basically not just call us, send me the order form, but obviously they looked at it and they were convinced that this works for them. So I think having a strong trial experience that is the real product, that somebody can really use like he would be a normal user, and maybe also work. We had at Signavio a lot of people that build actually first presentations to the board based on the trials, and then when you said, hey, it's now the month is gone, so we switch it off, they were like, hey, no, you cannot switch it off. This is basically what we created with a big team for the last 4 weeks. So you had like a very good, I think, product-led motion there that was compelling to the launch clients without convincing them too much with an expensive sales force. So I think if you have like a really cool product that fits and people can try it and they trust it, it's certainly a good way to start working with those enterprise clients. And the other thing is like if somebody like Gartner or Forrester just puts you somewhere on the quadrant, because they are, I think they're mainly targeting large clients. I think having a strong position in Gartner and Forrester certainly helps a lot as well. And that Hybris, we could like every pixel we moved up to the right corner, we could just add $1 million to the revenue, as we knew that even more big customers call us.
Every pixel increase price and demand.
yeah, you could do a formula, I guess, on that. But that was very obvious at Hybris. We moved like every quadrant that was released, we moved up to the top right, and it had like a dramatic impact on our demand. So yeah, spending time with analysts is expensive, but that definitely pays back.
What's your feeling like when would you add a second product, right? And then this is, I mean, I would say like if we think of timelines, right, the different investment, horizons we've just discussed play probably anywhere from 12 to 24 months to see first results if you do them successfully. If you have early signals, maybe it's faster, but and they, are all multi-million, if not tens of millions dollar investments. I think adding a second product typically takes even longer to know whether you made the right choice or not. Like when would you think, or have you seen that this works? At what scale?
Maybe a funny example. It wasn't that funny actually back then, but an anecdote. No, so when I became CRO of CX, I asked my team, people, we have a product called marketing. It's it was SAP marketing, and so I said I want meetings with all the CMOs of our customers. So I'll travel for the next 2 years, and you will get me meetings with the CMOs. And the feedback from the CMOs was quite often when the SAP internal people called them and said, "Hey, this is the wrong number. I don't work with SAP. I don't know SAP. I don't want SAP." And the one thing when you launch new products is I realized that, I mean, we had like a huge sales force, but we really struggled to open up a new buying center. It took so much time to get like visibility with the CMOs. And I think that's something we always struggle when you launch new products. You need to watch it. Who is buying this new product? We had it at Signavio as well. Process mining were more the business users, and then process modeling, that was more the process excellence people that were using. So two different people actually. And so we ended up having almost 2 sales forces, which is very expensive from a marketing perspective, because you need to penetrate 2 buying centers. From a sales perspective, you have like 2 sales forces. The pitch is so different. Tried to wrap it into a platform in the end, but then the platform buyer is another person again. Yeah. So that's always very challenging if you add new products. Is really, you got to watch it. Do I expand the share of wallet with my existing buying center, or is my new product addressing different stakeholders. I think it's needed at some point. Most of the companies, all the companies I worked at, Hybris not. No, Hybris was like what happened was would easily have made $1 billion, I think. Just being the commerce space being so hot back then. But most of the other companies, I think you need a sort of a larger product vision when you're approaching 100 million. Because then there's just so many customers out there that take you to $1 billion. So I think you need a bigger vision, but you also need to acknowledge that if the vision is broader, the buying center gets broader. So your setup gets more difficult and it takes time to impose yourself in a new buying center.
Yeah. And I mean, I think most of us know how hard it is to go from 0 to 100. Very few have lived through 100 to $1 billion, but that's 10x, right? just to think about it, right? It's 10x of that journey that was already extremely hard. And if you think about the organization you build, the processes, the people you hire, the conflicts that arise throughout these journeys, and then you 10x that. It's as you said in the beginning. I think it's hard to comprehend and super difficult to do. And it's obviously, as always, not just a go-to-market topic. It's a company topic, right? From product to essentially go to market in SaaS, right? Like it's great R&D and go to market, and then obviously you need the funding as well, right? From the financial side. So essentially,
there's one time I was
right?
I felt like it's interesting when you look at how fast did he get to the 100 million, I think, or how fast did he get to the 10? Also, we typically took 10 years to get to 50 million. So how long does it take to then? There's companies out there like Slack, they got to 100 million, I think, within 2 years. So I think it can be also indicative how much time did it take to get to 50 million. Most of the companies I know, they took roughly 10 years to get to the 50 million. So yeah, you can, I think you already can determine that this is probably going to tough with this offering to get to $1 billion, because it took you 10 years to get to the 50. A company like Slack, who did it in 2 years, seems to have like just a surge from such a demand, no? That
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That they just found this hot product that fulfills a dramatic need, and people just buy in masses. And I think if you don't have this pull, you will need to end up extend your offering to get bigger, and it will just take longer to get there. That's why I feel like a lot of companies somehow at 100 million, maybe feel like, okay, this maybe this is it. I need a scaler now that has everything in place. It's quite amazing what SAP does. I mean, they have like 40,000 clients, and just leveraging their relationships, that easily adds a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I think at some point, if your product is not scaling, you either go a bit wider, but that takes time, or you find somebody that has like those existing relationships.
Yeah. I think one thing I always think about when I think about like SaaS success is, if you think about your core buyer and then you think about all the software they buy, where do you sit on the leaderboard? Are you the number 1, number 2, number 3? And how do you how do you grow your share of wallet in your category? And I think that is, like a good idea of like, it has so much impact on pricing. It has a lot of impact on, churn, net and gross dollar retention, right? So I think this is a really, I think, interesting question. And when you then add the new product and you sit in a different buying center, or you serve a completely different persona, that might be completely different, right? So I think thinking about that and really understanding it is super crucial. And then obviously tailwinds, as you mentioned. I mean, some markets that have enormous tailwinds, if we think about, kind of cloud infrastructure, right? I mean, it's and it's like, everybody's talking about AI, and cloud infrastructure just sits there and says yes. Yes. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yes. It's finding the right market, the right moment but that's quite rarely a founder's choice. No, I think that's you have an idea, you do something, and then you sort of need to be so convinced about it that you even get to 2 million. Maybe you're lucky and you have the tailwind, maybe not. No? So
Look, I think we're actually at time, but like, if you think back now about your career, right? Like, is there anything you would recommend, younger go-to-market leaders, what to maybe do differently or find earlier, or like, how to basically stay sane in this often very hectic world?
I don't know. As I said, I never thought much about my career, no. So I just always did what I loved to do. And I feel like this is something I realize a lot. If you really do what you love to do, it doesn't feel like a job, no. Then you just enjoy what you do, and it doesn't really matter if you need to work long hours because you love what you do. So and it doesn't need to be a CRO in a SaaS company. I think I just found for me this job being the job I really love to do. So I don't feel it's work for me. And I think the other thing I feel like you always need to be super ambitious if you want to achieve dramatic things. I think you need to be crazy ambitious and accept failure. I mean, Jesus Christ, we missed so many targets in my 20 years, but they were always very ambitious targets. No, so in the end, you look back and said, "Hey, we doubled the company now over 2 years." So, wow, okay,
It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
It's actually not that bad. No, it's not that bad. So being ambitious is always good, and setting high targets is always good, but maybe not killing yourself if it didn't 100% unfold. And I think the other thing I always felt like there's so much knowledge and innovation in people. So don't try to impose yourself too much and don't try to micromanage too much. Rather inspire those people to live their dreams and do the things that they feel like they need to do and they love to do. And there's so much innovation that came out of our teams over the years that you cannot think about it now. So let loose those people and give them an environment that they really can play their best game and they really have fun also in what they do. I think that's something I found super influential in all I did, that I had amazing people around me that did amazing things that I could not have thought of that it would have worked. I mean, but they just proved it. So I think trust people and give them the flexibility and the freedom to do things is certainly very important.
Fantastic closing words, Mark. Thank you so much for being part of the show.
It was a big pleasure. Thank you.